Oop, stop doing this, part two. So every time I send out a legal tip that I get a bunch of emails or responses, I know I found something that's really good and we need maybe to go a little bit deeper into it. Last week we sent a video out saying, please stop doing this. And I got tons of emails, mostly people saying, yes, this is happening to us all the time. I'm tired of it. A couple asking questions, one or two saying, I disagree with it. So please always send those responses. It helps me formulate better legal tips for you. But let's talk about last week's legal tip. Last week's legal tip is you represent a buyer. House is for sale for 200 grand. Multiple offers are coming in. Your client really wants it. So you advise your client bid 230, 240. We'll win because we'll have the highest bidder. We'll put it contingent on appraisal. It'll never appraise for that. So when the appraisal comes in, the seller will have to reduce the price, or you can terminate, and we'll get the house. So basically, you're buying that listing is what they call that. So is that legal? Is that ethical? I'd say it's not. I think it violates Article 1 of the Realtor Code, and I believe again it violates 4057-350, which of the state law, which requires you to have honesty, fair dealing with a consumer on the other side. So the question came in, well, isn't this really just on the listing agent? Because shouldn't the listing agent be able to control their client, advise their client, tell them, well, don't accept a contingency appraisal or don't accept this price? How's that a buyer agency problem? I don't believe that's a problem. Well, the problem here is yes, the listing agent should do their best to advise their client that this is not a good offer, but ultimately it doesn't negate your responsibility under Article 1 of good faith and fair dealing for the Realtor Code of Ethics. Nor, in my opinion, does it negate your responsibility under 4057-350 of good faith and fair dealing with the consumer on the other side. Those can't be negated. Your ethical duties can't be negated just because you believe that the listing agent should have done a better job of explaining it. And let me really drill down here. What I'm talking about isn't when the house is listed for 200 and your client says, I really want this. What do you think about 215? You're like, well, I don't know if it'll appraise at 215, but we can offer that. You know, if it could be close. If it appraises at 215, you'll buy it, right? Yes. But if it appraises lower, then we may be able to negotiate. That's different than when you tell your client, there's no way this house is going to appraise at 230 or 240, but let's just give that offer. That way we'll win. And then when the appraisal comes in for much less, the seller will have no choice but to take reduce it to that appraised value. That's a big difference. That's where it's unethical, is when you know it's not going to appraise and you're advising your client, hey, let's just submit this offer because there's no way it's going to appraise. That's different than submitting an offer that it may appraise and your client's still willing to buy it if it does appraise. What I'm seeing in the industry is agents are being told by the buyer's agency, well, I know it's not going to appraise when they submit the offer. They're already admitting they know it's not going to appraise, and they're already admitting that their offer is inflated and not real. So that's what I'm talking about. All right. Don't forget our podcast. Episode 2 just came out with Brad Allen. You can go to Google and type in Gary Pickren podcast. You can go to any podcast and type in Gary Pickren or the link here below. This week, Brad Allen and I talked about how to represent a buyer when the seller is for sale by owner. And that's 90% of the time when a seller is for sale by owner, that they wind up selling the house to somebody represented by an agent. So that's a very, very important topic you need to take a look at. Lastly, Cleveland Browns 4-1 big game against the Pittsburgh Steelers this weekend. And don't forget the Atlanta Braves 3-1 against the Dodgers right now in the National League Championship Series. We win tonight. We go to the World Series, first time since '99. So go Braves, goes Browns. Give me a good weekend. You guys have a great one. Take care.